Hi there. Here we are for our 58th episode of the Art of Advocacy live Facebook show. So thanks for being here. Go ahead and say hi, give us some love and likes so I know that you're here with us. When you type in your comments or questions, we're using Be Live TV today, so I can bring them up on the screen. So today is all about when we hear things like, if your son would just make better choices at school, things would go much better. Or, if your daughter was just more responsible, her grades would be better. Now, if you've heard similar comments like that, and it's like, what? How do I take this? What do I do? This is the show for you. We're going to be talking about how different schools, different teachers, different parents view kids' behavior. Now, I'm all about making sure that you have enough advocacy tools, right? Got advocacy tools for your toolbox. And one of the advocacy tools that you need are different books that you can go to, find some inspiration, find some answers, find some important best practices that you can implement at home and that you can also talk and have a conversation with the staff at school and see if they're open-minded to using some positive behavior strategies in your child's school. So let's look in our advocacy toolbox. Let me put this aside here. And the book that we have for today is, let me pull this down here. It's called Lost at School, and the author is Ross Greene. Now, I had never heard of Ross Greene before until I was working with a parent years ago. And she told me her sister was a teacher. They just had this wonderful workshop at their school. And it was all about this other way of looking at kids' behavior and trying to understand and have a more collaborative, positive, proactive way of approaching things. And so if Casey is watching us live or on the replay today, thank you so much, Casey, for introducing me to Ross Greene and his philosophy. Now, you might have heard the expression before, kids can I think I just got it wrong. So we'll have to look at the book to make sure I get it right. But the whole idea is if kids have the skills, if kids have the thinking strategies, they can do better if they have those skills. So let me know if you're here with us live. Let me see. I don't see any comments yet. I'll check on my phone and make sure we're live on Facebook. We're here every Thursday at noon. And, Facebook has just been, there I am. Facebook has just really been having this delay. So I see we have some live people. So go ahead and say hi to us, and I'll make sure that I can greet you. So one of the things that I would love to know, you can just type yes or no in the comment box, is, have you heard of Ross Greene before? He has, like I said, I think a really positive way of looking at behavior. So let me type in his name here. Raylene is with us. Hey, Raylene. So Ross Greene, it has an E on the end. And Raylene is from Tennessee, so I love it. We have it's just so fun for me to see the people from around the country that tune in. And she hasn't heard of Ross Greene before. So, Raylene, one of the things that you might want to do is, I got to turn this agenda thing off. How do I make that comment go down? Is to look for some of his books. This one is called Lost at School, but he also has The Explosive Child and a couple other books. He has a wonderful website where you can go and get a number of resources that he has on there about workshops and training. He does a lot of workshops for parents, but also for school districts. So that's pretty cool. Now, for some reason, let's see. There we go. So, hey, Raylene. I'm super glad you're here, and I hope you'll be getting some great information that's helpful for you at home, but also helpful for your child's teachers at school. So what I was going to do is, I am not a trained expert or a trained facilitator for Ross Greene's process that he calls collaborative and proactive problem solving. But what I wanted to do was just share some nuggets from his book and give you enough information, hopefully, that will whet your appetite and spark your curiosity and allow you to want to go and search out some more information about his philosophy. So, since I'm reading from this book, I'm going to need my glasses. One of the things that he says in here that I think is really interesting is he talks about all the kind of typical assumptions or things that you might have heard from teachers. And the lighting is not very good, so let me put my extra light on here. You know, when you're an advocate, you have to have all kinds of things and good lighting so you can read. It's one of those things. And I should just put it on the book or something. I don't know why it's so dark in here. So it says, one of the things that you might typically hear at school is, oh, he just wants attention. And I'm sure we've probably heard that, especially if your child has had a functional behavior assessment done. They might say, oh, they're just attention seeking. Well, what Ross Greene says as a response is, we all want attention. So this explanation isn't very useful for helping us to understand why a kid is struggling to do well. And if the kid is seeking attention in a maladaptive way, doesn't that suggest that he lacks the skills to seek attention in an adaptive way? So I think on other broadcasts when we've talked about behavior, I am just a firm believer that we need to make sure that we look beyond kind of the obvious of, oh, he's being a class clown or he's just trying to get everybody's attention, and really look at why he's seeking that and how we can help him do it in appropriate ways. And Ross Greene comes from the philosophy that if we help kids learn new skills and new strategies and have them practice and put those in place, then we'll see a change. And it's a much more positive way, I think, of looking at behavior versus getting upset and, you know, kind of going right to a punishment kind of thing. Now, another thing that you might have heard is, oh, he just wants his own way. And Ross Greene's response is, we all want our own way. So this explanation doesn't help us achieve an understanding of a kid's challenges. Adaptively, getting one's own way requires skills often found lacking in challenging kids. And what he has, when you look into some of his process that he used, he has a checklist to identify what he calls lagging skills that your child may have, and that is what is causing some of maybe the inappropriate ways to get their needs met. So it's, I just think all of this makes sense to me. And again, I think it's something that I'm hoping that you'll want to explore. Let me see if I can type. See, I don't know why this agenda comes and goes. But the other thing is his website that I want to give to you, and it's called livesinthebalance.org. So it's all one word, livesinthebalance.org. And on his website, like I said, there's a ton of resources for parents and families, but also for teachers. And I realized I never introduced myself here. If you don't know me, I'm Charmaine Tanner. I'm a parent, a retired teacher, and now I'm an advocate and public speaker. And we are here on this Facebook page every Thursday at noon Mountain Time. So thanks for checking in and joining us. If you have comments or questions, Raylene knows how we do this, right? You can type them in the comment box, even if you're watching the replay, because I'll be back here to check in and answer further questions. But let's go through a couple other things that you often hear at schools and how we can look at this in a different way. So here's one that you might have heard. He's just not motivated. And Ross Greene says, this is another very popular characterization that can be traced back to the kids do well if they want to. And it can lead us straight to interventions aimed at giving a kid the incentive to do well. But why would any kid not want to do well? Why would he choose not to do well if he has the skills to do well? Isn't doing well always preferred? So what he does is he contrasts that philosophy or the mentality of kids will do well when they want to versus kids do well if they can, if they have the skills. And that just switches everything we do. So instead of getting upset and frustrated and, taking away, different kinds of rewards or making them miss their recess or something. Instead, as adults, we can look at what can we do to change to help the student get the skills that they need. So here's one that I mentioned at the beginning of the show. He's making bad choices. And Ross Greene says, are you certain he has the skills and the repertoire to consistently make good choices? So some of these comments would be great for you to add to an email or when you're having a conversation with teachers. So I would suggest that you pick up a copy of his Lost at School book because it's pretty cool. And here's one. Blame the parents, right? His parents are incompetent disciplinarians. My experience is that parents of well-behaved kids get too much credit for the fact that their children are well-behaved, and the parents of challenging kids get far too much blame for the fact that their children are not well-behaved. Blaming parents doesn't help anyone at school deal effectively with the kid in the 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, 9 months of the year that he's there. So Raylene and others who are with us here live, and if you're watching the replay, have you heard any of these kinds of comments from staff? And are these like resonating? It's like, yes, I've heard that before, and I never really had a response or knew how to look at this in a different way. If so, type a comment there in our comment box. So I have 3 more common phrases that you'll hear at school. And you might hear, he just has a bad attitude. And Ross Greene's response is, he probably didn't start out with one. Bad attitudes tend to be the byproduct of countless years of being misunderstood and over-punished by adults who didn't recognize that a kid was lacking critical thinking skills. But kids are resilient. They come around if we start doing the right thing. So wow, doesn't that make you take a step back. So the bad attitude might be a byproduct of countless years of being misunderstood and overpunished by adults. Now, I work with parents every day, and I get texts and phone calls and emails from parents every day. And a common concern is how their child is being treated at school, when instead of realizing there's an underlying reason for what they're doing, and instead of taking the time to figure that out, so many times it's just this knee-jerk reaction, and kids are immediately shamed or disciplined or punished. And it's like, it's so frustrating, right? And it's got to stop. We've got to be able to have other things in place, other skills for teachers to be able to have, so our kids are safe and happy and learning every day at school. Because that's what I feel like is my mission, my passion, right? So how about this? His brother was the same way. Ross Greene says, so it's the gene pool. Alas, we can't do anything about the gene pool. And it's likely that his brother was lacking some important thinking skills too. So we can't just, have these things where we, just automatically blame kids and see it as the kids' fault. I can't remember what I was reading the other day, and it was saying, I think it was an article from maybe the New York Times. I'm not sure. I think it's on my Facebook page, but it was saying, I think the title of it was The Problem Child. And it's the child is not the problem. And that's what I find so disheartening, is when staff blame your child and act like, it's their choice, or that they purposely are doing these behaviors to bug you. When if we really look at it, it's more likely that they don't have other skills that they can use. And it's up to us as adults to make sure that we help them learn those other skills. So Susan's with us from Denver. Hey, Susan, glad to see you. And Marlo from Pennsylvania is here. If the aid's back up, and I think and allow growth. Yes, I totally agree, Marlo. And I do have several videos about using paraprofessionals or aides, and to make sure that they're not smothering your child and allowing your child, like Marlo said, to have that opportunity for growth. So there's a lot of factors here. It's not just one simple thing. But I think the overall philosophy of discipline and how the staff is going to support students in their building is like critical. That culture of the school is so important. And I really think the principal is the one that is needs to be that leader. And if there is a negative culture, if there is shaming and inappropriate discipline and punishment given out way all the time, that is a red flag for you as a parent. And there's a number of things that you can do. If you're in my in IR advocacy tools you need for your toolbox closed membership group, right after this broadcast, I'm going to go into our closed Facebook group, and we're going to continue the discussion about how you can communicate with staff when you are feeling these frustrations because your child isn't being positively supported at school. So a resource that I have, because on every one of our Facebook Live shows, I try to give you additional resources that you can use. So a while ago, I wrote an article for Expert Beacon, and it was all about 5 do's and 5 don'ts of how we can help your child, things that we want to not be doing and things that we want to replace and do that are more positive. So if you'd like my article about the 5 do's and don'ts about behavior, just type the number 5 in the comments below, and hopefully my IEP bot will automatically answer you and give you the link for that 5 do's and don'ts article that I wrote. Another thing that I wanted to share with you, because I remember we want to always have lots of tools in our toolbox, is this kind of checklist or kind of a cheat sheet that Ross Greene uses. He has a whole process of being more collaborative and talking and working with the student and making sure that we're proactive instead of waiting for situations to happen, that we're proactive and we can make sure that those supports are in place. So it's interesting because, here's my glasses, there's 3 basic steps. He calls it his plan B, which I think is interesting. And again, I'm not a trained facilitator for this process, but I just want to share with you some of the information, and hopefully you'll be able to go and explore it some more, and even, talk to your building principal and see if it's something that the principal is interested in, and they can contact Ross Greene and his company and get training and workshops for your staff in your school. So his Plan B checklist, and this is a PDF on his website. And again, the website is called livesinthebalance.org. And you can download quite a few different resources there. But his Plan B basically has 3 steps. And the first step is called the empathy step. And he really emphasizes the necessity of forming relationships with kids and getting to know them on a personal level. And this is something, like I said, that works not only at school, but also you can use it at home. So I just like his ideas. So the empathy steps begins with an introduction, which begins with the words, "I've noticed that," and ends with the words, "What's up?" So when you notice your child doing something, or when the teacher notices your child doing something which, is considered inappropriate, then they can just matter-of-factly say, "I've noticed that when you're outside at recess, there seems to always be this squabbling and arguing about the basketball on the basketball court and whose turn it is. What's up?" So you start with, "I've noticed," and you just have an objective, non-judgmental way of saying what you've noticed. And then you just, at the end, you want to invite some more conversation and dialogue. And so you say, "What's up? What's up with that?" And then you wait for the child to be able to respond, because it's not a got you, like, "I noticed you were fighting on the playground at the basketball court. No more recess for you the rest of the day." Instead of making those kind of knee-jerk reactions, we say, "I've noticed, what's up?" And then we let the child talk. And so that is also when he calls the second step to define the adult concerns. And so after the child has explained, what their perception is of what's happening, then the adult would say, "My concern is," or "the thing is," and the adult will talk about how that unresolved problem, what how that can play out. So again, the phrase is my concern. So if we use the basketball on the recess time as an example, my concern is when you guys are out there fighting over the basketball, I don't want somebody to get hurt. So you take it away from, if you would just stop arguing or fighting, things would be better. And instead, you do your plan B and you say, my concern is I don't want somebody to get hurt, during recess time. So if you are here, Terry's here. Oh, good. So Terry says, I have the book, love it. And the teachers are getting it too now. I've heard he doesn't listen, meaning he won't comply. And the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, referring to parents doing their best. Yes, those are great. Those are other common phrases that we hope are going to be going by the wayside, right? But I don't know. To me, it's like a breath of fresh air when I see somebody that is, helping other teachers and families learn alternative strategies versus punishment when it comes to helping our kids develop some other skills that they just don't have at this time. So with Ross Greene's Plan B, first is the empathy step, then is the defining your concern step, and then the third step is your invitation step. And this starts with, I wonder if there's a way. And so you kind of summarize the concern that the child is pointing out and his viewpoint of what's happening on the basketball court at recess time. You summarize the concern that you have, that somebody might be getting hurt. And then you pose the question, I wonder what would happen if, and you try with the child to come up with some collaborative ways to resolve the situation. And so this is such, I think, a life-changing way of how we look at behavior. Because if your child is in a school where they have that card system and everybody starts as a green card, and then the teacher says, oh, pull your card if you do something wrong, and you go to a yellow card, or pull your card and you go to a red card. Or if they have that system in the class where, you go from green to yellow to red to black, and your clothespin gets pushed down every day when you do something wrong in the teacher's eyes. I really hope that you can talk to the principal and see if there isn't a way that the school can get the training that they need, the coaching that they need to implement more positive behavior strategies. I think that's like one of the biggest things that we need to change in our schools. Because otherwise it's torture for the kids to be there every day, 5 days a week in that kind of environment. And it's not going to be a way that we can raise healthy adults. So I just is like, this is my new crusade as far as changing things and changing how people look and perceive behavior, and instead of looking at it as the child is choosing to do something just to bug you, that it's a form of communication, and what are they trying to communicate to you? So I see that Michelle said 5 in the box, so hopefully you got your automatic link from my IEP bot about 5 do's and don'ts about behavior, an article that I wrote. And Raylene also typed in a 5. So if you're interested in a follow-up article, just write the number 5 in, and you'll be getting the link to that. So the other thing I wanted to touch base with and just remind, because some of the people with us live right now are also in our private membership group, which is advocacy tools you need for your toolbox. So right when our broadcast is done here today, I'm going to be jumping into our closed Facebook group, and we're going to do some follow-up work on communication and emails and what we can do when things are not going so well at school. So if you're in our advocacy tools course in our membership group, I hope you can stay with us, and we'll be over there in a few minutes. The other thing I wanted to share with you is I'm using the month of November to focus on behavior as communication for our theme for the month. Now, we won't be having a live show on Thursday during Thanksgiving, but next week I have a great guest. Her name is Chris Curry. She lives in Idaho, but works with families around the country. She is another one of those people that it's like she gets it, she understands it, she has common sense ways of helping kids, helping staff and parents understand behavior better. And her ideas sometimes are like, you know, you would think like they would be this grand idea and this big scheme and this whole thing that you have to do. And Chris can just come up with the most wonderful, simple ideas that make a huge difference. So I hope you're enjoying our behavior series. Last week we had Kiki McGow from Denver on. And if you missed that show, I can give you the link. This week we talked about Ross Greene, in particular his book Lost at School. And I see Erica's here. Hey, Erica. And we'll be sending you the link to the article about the 5 do's and don'ts about behavior. And I want to see if we have any other questions. I know this is a busy time of your day. I don't know if some of you are using your lunch break to be with us every Thursday, but let me see if we have any other questions or comments. Let's see. I don't see any now, but each month, I try to have a different theme for our shows. Like I said, this month, it's about behavior as communication. So if you have suggested themes that you would like to see us concentrate on for our weekly shows in upcoming months, please, you can send me a message or type in the comments or post something in the Facebook group about topics that you're really interested in, because I want to make sure that when you're spending your time with us, that it's useful and helpful. So I appreciate your input and your feedback. So let's do another check. And Kelly's with us. Hey, Kelly, thanks for being here. And she also wants the 5 do's and don'ts about behavior. So you'll get that link. And I don't know. Hopefully, you'll be able to go to, and here's my agenda again. I don't know. I'm going to type in Ross Greene's website, Lives in the Balance, and it's all one word, .org. So that's a great place to go for more information. So I appreciate you being here with us. I will add additional information into our post. If you think of questions later and it's like, why didn't I ask that? Feel free to ask it and just type it in the post, because throughout the day and the coming days, I come back to the Facebook Live shows and I look for new questions or comments, and I make sure that I address those for you. So just to remind you, I'm Charmaine Tanner. I am a parent, a retired teacher, and what I'm devoted to is the whole issue of justice for kids. I just find it incredibly sad when I see students in schools not being supported and given the services that they deserve. So my whole goal is to help parents be more effective advocates. And I do this with my Facebook show and through newsletters and things like that. So if you haven't liked our Visions and Voices Together page, like it. You'll get notification when we're going live again. And until next Thursday, when we'll be back for our Art of Advocacy show, have a great weekend. Have a good start to your week next week. And we shall see you on Thursday. Take care.